When I see that my friends have the newest version of iPhone, I always get really excited and ask them what they think about it. And usually the response is pretty lackluster. They say, well, the camera feels better and it feels faster with better battery life than before, but it's just an iPhone. And that's how iPhone upgrades have felt over the last couple of years. So that's why I was particularly interested in the upgrade to the new design with the iPhone 12 series and the iPhone 12 Pro. I was excited to get to upgrade from my iPhone 11 Pro from last year, and I was hoping that the new design would give me a different experience. But is different always better? Let's talk about it. This is NOISO, and this is my iPhone 12 Pro review. The iPhone 12 series has the redesign that we've all been asking for. I was getting a little tired of the same old curved iPhone X design, and I really appreciate this is not only unlike any iPhone before it, but unlike any other phone on the market. Everything about this phone feels like it's a premium device worth its $999 asking price. The stainless steel edges are easy to grip onto, and they feel incredibly robust, so I feel a little bit less worried about dropping this relative to earlier phones. I'm really glad that the whole industry have converged to this frosted glass back design because it's significantly better at resisting fingerprints than the more glossy designs that we got used to in the 2017 and 2018 era. Unfortunately, those fingerprints are now redirected to the edges of the phone, where the new glossy metal coating is a lot more reflective and therefore takes on the fingerprints a lot worse. I guess for most people this probably won't matter because they won't be handing their phones to each other as much as they used to, but it makes it a lot more difficult to take pictures of or take video of, so maybe just my problem. Now, before we get more into it, chances are if you're watching this video, you're probably not subscribed. And I'm not going to ask you to subscribe, but I'll make you a deal. If you watched one of my other videos like my Surface Pro X versus MacBook Air or my AirPods Max review, and you like either of those, then get subscribed. If you don't, then just watch the rest of this one, and thanks again for watching. Unfortunately, despite the visual design looking good, the ergonomic design of the iPhone 12 Pro feels like a significant step down from their prior model. While many people were discussing the iPhone 11 to 12 upgrade and the fact that they were significantly shrinking the bezels and the footprint, the iPhone 12 Pro is actually pretty similarly sized and even a little bit bigger than the iPhone 11 Pro. Now, despite having a larger screen size, the problem I have with it is the square edges are actually more difficult to hold on to than the more curved edges of the iPhone 11 Pro. And so they actually feel like they dig into my hand a little bit more, and it's more difficult to actually reach around with my finger without leaving marks in my hand. Now that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but comparatively, the way the iPhone 11 Pro sits in my hand is a lot more comfortable. And so if I had to choose between the two designs, I would actually choose the more ergonomic design of the iPhone 11 Pro rather than the 12 Pro. Outside of the ergonomic design, the design of these two phones are otherwise quite similar, with the same camera arrangement and same, front panel generally, though the bezels on this are slightly smaller. But that leads us into what I feel is one of the biggest shortcomings of the iPhone 12 Pro in the display. Now, in general, the display is excellent. It's got great brightness, great colors, and it's very, very sharp. But one of the biggest shortcomings is the fact that it's only 60 Hz. Now, if you've seen a lot of my other review videos, you'll know that I'm not particularly sensitive when it comes to high refresh rate displays. I often don't notice the difference on Android phones. And notably, iPhones have always been known to have smoother animations, so it could be that a 60 Hz iPhone might feel as smooth as a 120 Hz Galaxy. But frankly, what I noticed when using this phone is that when I was navigating through YouTube or swiping through Twitter or going through my emails, everything felt a little bit slower. And I knew it wasn't because it wasn't a fast phone. The iPhone is always incredibly fast. But unfortunately, it felt like the screen was moving significantly slower, and the only thing that I can think to attribute to that is the 60 Hz display. So in this possibly crazy change of heart, I feel like the iPhone 12 Pro's display actually needed to be 90 or 120 Hz. And we know that that experience is absolutely excellent on iOS because we've seen it on the iPad Pro. And so I'm very disappointed that Apple wasn't able to bring it to the iPhone 12 Pro or the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Even if it's all a fluke and I do get used to the 60 Hz on the iPhone 12 Pro again, I still feel like there are other phones at the exact same price point or significantly cheaper, even less than half the price, with higher refresh rate displays. And so I fully expect Apple to include it in their next generation iPhone. But the other reason why I really don't like the iPhone 12 Pro's display is the notch. Now, we've seen rumors in the last couple of years that Apple should be able to shrink the notch and bring the components together in order for it to take a smaller portion of the screen. I'm still really waiting for that to come, but for now, I really don't like the fact that it interferes with my content and it gets in the way and it feels like it's taking up a significant portion of the screen. And the usable screen space on this phone is significantly reduced relative to other phones that just have a hole punch cutout, which I don't like hole punch cutouts, but they do feel like a better solution than this. But the real question about the notch is whether it's worth it to get Face ID. Now, frankly, I've never liked Face ID from day one. I appreciate the fact that many people find it as a better solution for unlocking their phone. But even at the beginning, I always found that it was inconvenient for me to be able to unlock my family's or my partner's phone when I wanted to quickly. In the past, when all iPhones had fingerprint ID, you could unlock your partner's phone by adding your own fingerprint to their phone. And so if my girlfriend and I were in the car and I was driving and I asked her to read a text message for me, she would be able to unlock my phone without having to type in the passcode. But adding a passcode or using a passcode just adds a few more seconds of friction to every time you want to unlock your phone. And frankly, I unlock my phone hundreds and hundreds of times a day, probably more than I should. And you know what's really, really inconvenient when you're trying to unlock your phone hundreds of times a day, but you just can't because something's in the way? Over the past 8 or 9 months, it's been increasingly frustrating to bring an iPhone with me out into public because every single time I unlock my phone, I've got to enter in my passcode. And while it seems like a tiny bit of friction, having to do that over and over again, hundreds of times a day, just adds a lot of time and frustration to me. Now, generally, I shouldn't be unlocking my phone hundreds of times a day, but this is both because of Apple and other manufacturers making it just so easy to unlock your phone with your face or with your fingerprint. I've gotten used to just literally pulling my phone out of my pocket and unlocking it immediately. And I love the fact that I can do that until now. Look, I'm not going to expect that Apple could tell the future and know that there was a pandemic that was hitting in 2020 and that we'd all be wearing masks. But Apple is such a massive company with so many resources that I imagine if they had got together in March or April of last year and thought, hey, masks are becoming a thing, maybe we should at least add one phone to the iPhone 12 series that allows you to unlock it using a fingerprint. They've got this big, flat, side-mounted lock button that looks awfully similar to the new iPad Airs. I can't help but think it's somewhere in their decision-making that they were considering adding in fingerprint sensors. And even if they had just added it to the single model, I would have instantly opted for that model over others. Now, rumors are the new iPhone 12s or 13 will have an under-screen fingerprint sensor, just like nearly every other phone in the market. So hopefully Apple will have learned their lesson. But Apple's been pushing this whole Face ID on us, and in this odd twist of the world, we somehow find ourselves in a position where unlocking our phones in daytime with a fingerprint sensor is significantly better. Okay, so now my script is telling me that I get more angry about the cameras not being a significant upgrade, and but wait a second. These are some pretty darn good pictures. Okay, I admit I watched a couple of reviews of the iPhone 12 Pro, and then I saw the pictures and I listened to what people say, and I was convinced that the 12 Pro wasn't a significant upgrade in camera because the 11 series had such a huge upgrade in camera from its predecessors. And so I was fully expecting to be a little bit let down by the quality of the iPhone 12 Pro. But then I started taking pictures side by side with these two phones, and I put them up on my display, and I didn't reveal to myself which was which, or I had someone switch them out for me. And I started, going through them, and I was like, the iPhone 12 Pro looks, well, okay, let me just let you make your own decision. So before we get into it, before I start talking about my experience, I'm going to show a couple of side-by-side pictures, the iPhone 11 and iPhone 12 Pro, and you pick which pictures are better. And I'll even label them A and B, and then I'll tell you which ones are which, and you can decide for yourself. Okay, great. Welcome back. So just like on the bottom of a cereal box, here are the answers to the quiz. Let me know what you think was the better down in the comments below. Now, personally, I found that the iPhone 12 Pro outperformed the iPhone 11 Pro in just about every single scenario I tested against. Not only in night mode, not only in daytime, not only in portrait mode, every single picture, nearly, felt significantly better on the iPhone 12 Pro than the iPhone 11 Pro. And I was really impressed when I saw this. And I think I know why, at least for me. You see, one of the biggest frustrations that I had with the iPhone 11 Pro was not that it didn't have an incredible quality camera, but the pictures that came out of it just felt a little bland for me. I have a taste for more vibrant, punchy, saturated pictures that look nicer for me to just easily share with my family and friends. I'll be honest, I totally didn't expect to be positive in this review, but let's run with it. The performance, the battery life, both absolutely fine or excellent on the iPhone 12 Pro. I had no problems with the battery life. It didn't feel significantly worse to me than the 11 Pro, and frankly, living around the house all the time, I don't really need to charge as often as I would if I was going to work every day. Now, speaking of charging, I understand that many people are frustrated about not having a charger in the box. It doesn't particularly bother me because I have so many chargers around. What bothers me a little bit more is while we don't have USB-C, I kind of expected that. I'm a little bit disappointed with the concept of us switching to yet another proprietary charging standard in MagSafe. Now, MagSafe in concept feels like a very cool concept because frankly, every day when I'm trying to put my phone on the wireless charger, it takes a little bit of tweaking in order to get it right. So I appreciate the concept, but the fact that it's yet again, another Apple standard or maybe proprietary standard for Apple feels like they're trying to just milk the third-party accessory market for another licensing deal. Maybe that's not the case, and maybe it's just Apple really creating a solution for people. So I appreciate the solution. I just wish I could use the same solution for all of my other phones. And that brings us into the conclusion. I fully expected to end this video by saying the iPhone 12 Pro isn't really that big of an upgrade from the 11 Pro, and frankly, I don't like the redesign, so you should probably just go with the 11 Pro. But then after using this for a couple weeks, I've started to change my tune on it. I really appreciate the fact that the camera and the whole experience feels significantly better in many ways. And so I do think the iPhone 12 Pro is an incredibly compelling phone, especially considering they keep the price point at $999 and don't creep higher and higher. But that does assume that the iPhone 12 Pro is just in a vacuum with the iPhone 11 Pro, and we don't consider the other iPhones that are now available. Now, as a reminder, Apple released 4 iPhone 12s this year, the 12 mini, 12, 12 Pro, and 12 Max. Now, generally, I would say get the 12 mini if you want a small phone, get the 12 Max if you want a big phone. But the differences between the 12 and the 12 Pro are a little bit more specific or detailed. Now, first of all, the steel frame is an aluminum frame on the 12. The back is more glossy, and instead of 3 cameras, there's just 2. But other than that, they're actually pretty similar phones. At the same storage capacity, the difference in price is somewhere around $200, depending on what you get. And frankly, I don't know if that's really worth the upgrade. It's difficult for me to say without being able to use an iPhone 12 myself. So hopefully in the next couple months or next couple weeks, I'll be able to get an iPhone 12 to see whether it's actually compelling relative to the 12 Pro. But in that vacuum, if you are a pro user and you want features like the third camera, you want the more premium build, then frankly, I think the 12 Pro is a very, very compelling phone. Now, it's not necessarily my cup of tea because iPhones aren't my first choice, but if I had to use an iPhone, then this would be an excellent one. Thank you for watching ISO. I hope you like this review of the iPhone 12 Pro. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this new redesign because frankly, I'm still not convinced. If you like this video, be sure to like and get subscribed for more videos just like this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.